I could go back and tell myself or give advice to moms maybe in a similar situation, it's just if it's not happening right now, it's not happening. It's kind of how I ended up starting to look at
Yeah.
it. And if it does come up and it does happen, then there are people in place to help you and you can kind of start walking that journey. But I almost got too ahead of myself in trying to prepare for his future, but I didn't know what it looked like.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Birth Story podcast. If you are joining for the first time today, I'm your host, Alexis C. Girl mom, angel mama to one of the sweetest boys in heaven, birth trauma and uterine rupture survivor, and former NICU mama. Here you will have the opportunity to ask and have your burning questions answered by professionals, feel connected to other women's experiences as we normalize the different aspects of this journey we are on as moms. The real and raw moments of healing are shared here as we navigate loss, embrace strength, and find hope again while learning to live after loss. Please note the topics discussed on this podcast are for educational purposes only. Please see your personalized medical professional if you have any questions or concerns that arise from listening, including diagnosis and treatment.
We got to go home after 5 weeks. He was still in a tube, so we had to do training of I already have CPR with work, but we did a CPR course there and tube feeding training because he was going home with a tube. And so if it comes out, you have to be able to put it back in. I always made Jackson do it because even though I'm in the medical field, I'm like, I'm the mom, I can't do it.
Nope. That's so sad seeing that.
I know. And so we basically were just working on his feeding then. And then they let us go home after 5 weeks, and we got home and still it was again another like level of you just see all of your stuff set up. You're like, this is not what it was supposed to look like. Where I'm moving his all the cute. You have the room set up with your first,
Yeah.
and it's still there. Actually, I laugh at it, but Jackson attached. I don't know what it would be called. It's because we would have to tube feed him every 2 to 3 hours, just as a newborn feeds. You could do. I mean, we could either push it in with the syringe just time it, or you can do a gradual drip where it's just hanging.
Like by gravity?
Yeah. And so he attached a thing to the wall that would hold in his nursery that would hold the tube. And
Such a dad thing to do.
he's like, I'm gonna make this easier for her.
Yeah.
We replaced his side table with a medicart, and it's full of all the syringes and all the things, and it looks. It's again as it just the complexity of emotions. Where I'm like, I'm so happy we're here. And this is so sad. This is not how I'm supposed to just be sitting in this nursing chair, nursing my baby, having my newborn snuggles. And instead, I'm like attaching the milk to the wall and sitting him up in the chair perfectly so that it can drip into his nose. And we had to give him medicine every 8 hours. And we still do. We still do medicine for his, it's for his heart. His heart isn't for, like, he's been from seeing the cardiologist this summer. He's fully happy. His heart is pretty much fully recovered.
These babies are incredible.
They're so
like
resilient.
Such fighters.
I know. His right kidney is still quite damaged, so it just causes high blood pressure. So the medication is for his blood pressure, but it's not for his heart. It's because of his kidney that's damaged. But we see nephrology again a week, not even like 6 days before the C-section is. I'm like, Miles has all these 18-month appointments coming up in January. I'm like, gotta have
good timing, Kylie. Good timing.
So they keep a close eye, and we have to do kind of like blood work and just urine tests and ultrasounds every few months to check on his kidneys. Just to make
Are they expecting a recovery with his kidney, or
they just have to watch? It's an overtime thing where they're hoping that, like, the left one was damaged too, but not as bad. So they're hoping you do only need one kidney, which is a great bonus for
thank God.
Only one is really damaged. So they're hoping that one over time, it, I guess, just gets bigger and kind of like takes over that the role of the other one.
Mhm.
But he might be on that medication for life. I'm not sure because it's always going to be in his body. This like
Mhm.
damaged organ that's wanting more blood, sending that signal to the heart. So might always have high blood pressure. I'm not overly sure, but it's kind of just a waiting game with that.
Take it as it comes.
Yeah.
When you were tube feeding him, you were exclusively pumping, or did you
Yes.
end up using formula?
So no, I exclusively pumped because that was the one
Good
thing I
for
had
you.
control over. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the one
Control.
thing. It's
Oh,
so
that
control.
word.
I'm like, this
Control.
is the one thing that I can do
Yeah.
it mom for him. So yeah, I pumped for exclusively for a year, and
Good for
that
you. A year is a
thing.
long
But
time.
again, it gives you that sense of I'm doing something. I'm so out
Yeah.
of control in every other way, but at least I can give him that. And yeah, so exclusively pumped. We had to add formula powder
Okay.
to my breast milk to
Mhm.
fortify it, just because he was so tiny. He wasn't gaining weight. The first I really, really wanted to breastfeed, so I'm excited to I'm hoping I can do that with this baby. Um,
All the breastfeeding vibes.
he just wasn't because his heart was still coming home. His heart was so weak and in not in failure. Obviously, they wouldn't have let us take him home, but he was still very much recovering from birth, so they didn't want him extending any energy. They said a baby feeding is like running a half marathon, or for miles. It was like that if he was
Mhm.
trying to feed. So they wanted us just to keep tube feeding until he was healed. And at that time, I would try a couple times to put him on the breast, and he would just get so frustrated. And
Mhm.
so I was like, we're going to bottle it and tube feed it as much as he could bottle feed. And yeah, so he was tube fed for until about end of August. And then, but it was always so stressful. We would just count the millimeters that he would drink by bottle, and we're like, oh my gosh, he drank 20 mils out of this bottle. With the severe brain damage diagnosis, when you look back at, I mean, now he's doing so many things that we didn't think he'd be able to do. But back then, it was even a question if he would be able, that's a muscle control. And
Mhm.
the motor area of the brain is completely damaged. So we didn't know if he would have the strength or muscle coordination to be able to swallow. So yeah, every little thing was so amazing. The 20 mils, you're like, he can drink that, so he'll probably be able to drink more. Yeah, just those little things that are funny to look back on.
Yeah, now that he's like thriving, it seems,
Yeah,
from all your posts and everything, like from where you thought he would be
yeah. Oh my
at
god,
this
yeah.
point, right?
Because I mean, like I said, we were prepared for. She did say, I mean, his life may look like this. Basically, he might be in a wheelchair with head supports, nonverbal. That is a possibility for you guys and for Miles. And some people, when I talk about that, they're kind of like, doctors should never say that, or they're always wrong, or that kind of stuff. But to me, I'm also glad she was just very real about it. This is kind of what it is. You do as a parent, I guess. I'm glad they were honest about what it looked like and it wasn't sugar coated.
Yeah.
There was also the asterisk of a picture's just a picture. However, this is a possibility for you guys. So just because now it's if you start at the if you start your expectations are down here, then anything that they can do is incredible.
Tell me worst case scenario,
Yeah, and then we're
and then let's hit best case.
yeah,
Make that the goal. So what like resources do they have in place? Like occupational therapy or things like that?
yeah,
Like who does he still see?
all of them. So yeah, you never want to meet these people, but they're amazing people. Everyone I've met, I feel like I'm a better person now because of them, where they're just so awesome to have in your life. They set you up with an early intervention team right away. So right when we got home, we had the early intervention lead for our area. come and assess him. And then, yeah, PT, OT, and SLP. They pretty much will come as much as you want them to. For us, I mean, they kind of come once a month just to, and still do, just to assess where he's at and what he's doing and just give kind of advice or little things that we can do with him at home. Between the Royal Alex and the Stollery, neither one did the hearing test before we left because, I mean, ears were last on the list. We're like,
Yep. We were
heart,
worried about the heart and the kidneys.
we're like, we'll see if he can hear later. But yeah, so I got home and the public health nurse here phoned and just mentioned that there was no hearing test on file for Miles. They must have, you're supposed to have it done before you leave the hospital, but so we got that done in August. Yeah, in August. And then, yeah, he failed when we went into the public health here in Vegreville. And I remember even that was just, it was so hard too because it was the first thing that confirmed that he has severe brain damage or that like that his life isn't going to be this he is a miracle, but it's not this like
Yes.
miraculous recovery that there's going to be nothing. Again, my naivete. Okay, so he has severe brain damage, but there are kids that have totally overcome. Just the endless optimism where you're like, okay, let's sprinkle some realism in there. Where, yeah, it was the first confirmation that there is going to be, he is going to have things like challenges in his life. And so we had to go to the Glenrose a few times for these like 3-hour hearing tests. And yeah, it just confirmed that he did have, he could hear, but he did have severe hearing loss. So he essentially can't hear high pitched sounds. So like S, TH, kind of those sounds in our, for you and I, when we talk, he would miss. And then they said it mostly becomes important when he goes to school or with his peers because they speak so high when they're little, he wouldn't really catch any of what they're saying. So he got fitted for hearing aids in January. So I guess almost a year ago, January of 2024. And he wore them well up until a month or two ago. Now he's wearing them like, we are lucky if we get 30 minutes a day. So,
Toddler era, baby.
oh my gosh. And there's hats that they can put on and go around. And that worked for not that long because then he's just so mad about the hat and he's pulling the hat off. He just rips his hearing aids out. So he doesn't have any words really yet. Like he'll make some sounds. He says yeah all the time, which is kind of, we were laughing just in the car. Everything you ask him is just yeah, yeah, yeah. We're like, it's kind of nice.
Oh,
Yes, man. You know, he's just like yeah, yeah, yeah. And he kind of he doesn't like look at me and say mama or look at Jack and say dada, but he understands a lot of words. Like we're doing sign language with him, and so he's really into it. Like we get him to say please when he asks for things, so he's like yes in the circle, and we're just working on that. So he's hearing. We got to hear when we were in Glenrose. They it was cool. They put a voice like our eyes, just how we're hearing it right now, and then put that same voice through his hearing loss, so we could hear how he's hearing.
That is so
It's really cool. It sounds very just muffled and underwater. So he's
okay.
Because everyone's like, it seems like he can hear well, and I'm like, well, he is hearing. He's just his brain is interpreting like that's all he knows. So he knows it, but that's not going to help him learn to talk. We do think he'll be able to talk. It's just going to take him a lot longer, especially because he's not wearing his hearing aids.
Yes.
But, yeah, he's started to he's not fully walking independently, but he's getting so much more confident. Like he's taking a lot of independent steps. But it just takes, the thing with this brain injury is he essentially has to rewire his entire brain to learn whatever he's going to learn. And I don't know where if he'll be able to do that for everything. Um, so we took him to Ryu. I posted those that like paralysis recovery center.
Yep.
It's on the west side of Edmonton. We took him to some of those, and yeah, the therapist there, Nancy's amazing. And she got him to take his first steps independently in August. So he was 14 months old. And to me, I just like as a mom, I'm like, this is still going to take a really long time for him to, because I can see his physical limitations, or just when you're hanging out with other moms and you're watching the way like their babies are moving and the ease of it, and he has like a harder time in like those certain areas, or just sitting long and moving around. He very much W sits. So to me, it's obviously was still very exciting because he's doing this thing that we didn't even know if he would be able to do, and also knowing it's still going to take a long time just because he has to do it so much more than a neurotypical kid would need to do. They just kind of learn so much quicker, where he has to do something hundreds more times to like rewire that in his brain, where for us it would be more natural. So
But
yeah,
like how incredible that he's taking the time to do that, and like yes, it's taking him a bit longer, but these babies and children, they carry this strength with them. I feel like for the rest of their lives, and always like push to do the things that they were once said that they may not be able to do, and I think that's so incredible.
yeah, it is. And the hard thing is I try to stay rooted and grounded in that. It gets hard because you always want more. You want the most for your child and the best for your child.
Yeah.
And it's like when I go back and think about those things of like not knowing if he'd be able to eat. I remember we were just like we just want him to be able to show emotion because we didn't really know if that was going to be an issue either. And he started to laugh and smile, and you're just like, you're so overwhelmed with joy. And then you have that thing so that you're like, okay, well, now I want this thing. We have that now. I know that's all I wanted, but now I have it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that trying to remind myself that nothing was guaranteed. So you do just have to try to soak in everything that he's doing. Because yeah,
You
now
guys
we're
are
like,
so supportive. Like I know I've said this a million times. Like he's so lucky to have you guys. Like you're so supportive, and I know there's hard times in between all the good and the
yeah,
positive times, and you bask in it all, and you're just there for him.
yeah. I mean, we're not perfect. I know I sometimes I feel I'm like, I don't want us to look like we're the perfect parents. Like, I hope I don't come across that way on
Not at
Instagram. I'm like,
all. But as a parent, you strive to be perfect for your
yeah,
kids. That is a normal thing.
yeah, yeah. We
So
have our hard times, and he definitely needs. Again, it's so hard to know. He is still really young, where he's also in that toddler era, starting in that toddler era. But I feel like he needs a little bit more help with like emotional regulation. Has like huge meltdowns and things like that, where it's hard not to get in your head, and you're like, is this just normal toddler stuff, or is this going to be behavioral issues? So I still like those things still come up to me and still
mhm.
are always in the back of my mind of it. So you question everything and everything that he does still, but it's
Yeah,
just
like you said, trying to differentiate the two, like meltdowns are normal at that age, and it's probably amplified with his frustration of wanting to do certain things in his body or
mhm,
just not doing them,
communicate
right?
and not yeah,
It's like, well, everyone else is doing this, so
I know.
and I'm trying. Like, come on.
Uh,
Work with me.
so yeah, he doesn't have we actually have his so at the Glen Rose there's also they do a neonatal follow up. So we had one at 6 months, at 12 months, and we have one coming up here in a couple weeks for his 18 months. So I don't know if they will diagnose him with anything there. Because to me, in my heart, I know he has cerebral palsy. He hasn't been
Okay.
diagnosed with it, and I don't want to diagnose him. Obviously, he could, but it would be very mild is, like, the positive side of it if he does get that diagnosis, but he does like, his right fist will still clench when he's doing things. You shouldn't see a preference in hand dominance until they're 2 or over
Yeah.
2, and for him, he more uses his left hand, like, he'll prefer to use it, and his left side of his brain is, although it's all severe, it's more damaged than the right side, or that's just how it looks on the MRI. So it
Mhm.
makes sense that the right side of his body has that kind of little bit more, or even with him trying to take steps, like his right foot seems a bit more turned in. He has balance issues, which could be the inner ear being damaged,
Mhm.
also affects balance. But like he can't. One thing that he should be able to do right now, physically, that he can't is get into standing on his own, where he has to knee walk or crawl to a wall or a couch, pull himself up, and then he can like get his balance a bit and take some steps. But he can't just get up into standing. So there's just those little things, and there's so little where even I talked to my PT about it, and they have all kind of said the same thing. Where if he does get the diagnosis, it will be mild. But yeah, to me, I just feel like I know that that's coming down the road. But it was so
Yeah.
scary at first hearing those words. Because yeah, in the NICU, the day after the getting told about the brain damage, the nurse came in and was just like, "I'm so sorry you didn't get, the news or results that you wanted. But just keep in mind, like we've seen like such amazing things from our CP kiddos." And yeah, and to me, I was just like, it took me till the end of the day. I was like, CP kiddo. It didn't.
Like, what?
There's so much going on in my head. And then I remember laying in bed that night. I was like, oh my gosh, cerebral palsy. Like I don't know why that didn't register. And then to be at this spot 18 months later, when you
You do.
really like look back at it or like talk about it with you, it's like, yeah, we've come so far from where we started, even though these things might be coming true and she might be right. He might need help in every aspect of his life. Maybe he does have mild CP. Maybe he's going to have learning delays and stuff, and it all could also be mild. So it's just still taking it day by day and just hoping for the best.
And I feel like sometimes too we forget about like the spectrum things are on, like the mild, moderate,
Yeah,
severe. And when you hear these things, you automatically go to
worst case
severe.
scenario. Yeah, scenario.
However, yeah, I've had a lot of moms, not necessarily CP moms, but some other diagnoses. And it's almost better. I use that word very lightly, but to have the mild diagnosis to know how to appropriately help teach your child and to give them the best chance at,
Yeah.
I'm not going to use normalcy because
Yes,
nothing
I
is
know.
normal,
You know what? All the
but you know
parents
what
take
I
full
mean?
attitude. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
He's doing so good, and that's why we call him Miracle Miles.
Miracle Miles. Yeah, no, he is doing so, and he has like a good sense of sense of
Oh,
humor. So like he
yeah.
does have these like intellectual capabilities where for him to be able to even just communicate with sign language, as long as he can communicate with us, it's so helpful. So that's kind of what we're focusing on this next bit is just hopefully he can continue to learn more sign language. So even if he can't verbally tell us something, at least it will hopefully take some of that frustration away from him.
I love that you guys are taking the time to teach him that too. Like,
I mean, it's very basic still. You're not screen free.
no, and nobody
Love the
is.
great.
Like, if you say that, you're lying.
Yeah. But no, we do want to try to get, as I say that, as I'm having another baby soon, but we, that is on the list. I will make time for it. Yeah, just to learn more sign language to help him in that way.
What's that?
Yeah.
One final question, if
Yeah.
you have nothing else to add, but I always like to end with like on a very positive note. And so my question for you is if you could go back and tell yourself anything in those early moments,
Mhm.
or if a specific moment kind of pops out to you, what would you tell yourself now looking back on everything?
Oh, such a good question.
Putting you on the
I think it's
spot. Sorry.
no, I think it's something that I still tell myself, and I learned it in therapy way before Miles' birth, but she would always tell me what we resist persists. So just allowing, like, it's so easy to be hard on yourself. And in those moments where, how do I say this? Like if you try to resist that emotion or that thought, where to me, again, just talking about how I'm always like wanting more for him. So I feel guilty because he's doing so well. So I'm like, I should not be feeling any type of like, I need to just be so grateful for what he's doing and feeling guilty of having those feelings of like, I want more. But if you keep resisting that emotion, it's going to persist and get stronger. Make it that both things can be true at the same time. I can be so
Coexist,
grateful.
right?
Yeah. I can be so
Yeah.
grateful for everything he's doing. And I can still feel sad that when I go into these assessments, he is marked as delayed in these areas. And that's not what I want for him. And then I'm like, but I have to be happy because it's only going to be mild. It's
Yeah.
going to be a journey, and I know there's going to be a lot of beauty in it, and we'll make the most of it. But I think it's just allowing yourself to feel those feelings. So I've even like you've popped in my mind where I'm like, again, be sad about his hearing or like sad about these things. But I'm like, but he's here. And like my
Mhm.
friend Lex doesn't get to have Cade here. And like there's no space for me. Like I should not be feeling any type of way because I'm so lucky to have him here. I can't let myself feel sad about that because I get to know maybe it's not the version of him that I thought it would be, but I still get to know a version of him.
I
So
feel very strongly that you're allowed to feel there's no wrong emotion when it comes to this.
yeah,
And we can't define a normal and an abnormal feeling. And whatever does end up coming up, I mean, we all process so different. Everything is very subjective. No two outcomes are the exact same. And so to just give them space, and like you said, if you don't, they almost become like they persist. They become
yeah,
almost so consuming.
yeah,
And to not beat yourself up over the feelings that do come up, like
yeah.
give yourself permission too.
I still compare. Like I need to. That's something I've gotten
It's
better at,
human
but
nature, I
I
feel
know.
like, to do that, right?
Yeah, and just giving myself grace of being like I am, and it's a part of just trying to explore who Miles is. Where I'm like, oh, he's not doing that. That's just like in the back of my mind, just like don't dwell on it. Let it like come. Let myself feel like, oh, that's I wish he was doing that, and not be like,
Hmm.
oh, don't think about that. Let's focus on the positives. Like there is that toxic positivity that does like
That was literally in my brain. I'm like, don't kill yourself with a
yeah,
toxic,
it's
or
just
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Toxic positivity.
yeah. This was a huge traumatic thing, and you're allowed to
Yeah.
have that grief come in waves, and you're allowed to still feel sad, even if maybe he's not going to be in a wheelchair, but he still has these things. So it's yeah, just allowing yourself to still feel what you need to feel.
Yeah. And I mean, every day you're getting to know a new version of Miles. And alongside that, you're getting to know a new version of you too, right?
Mhm.
Like you became a different person that day. And every day since then have changed a little bit. And, those always play huge parts as well.
Yeah. And even the like how I'm talking about the CP thing where that became very all consuming for me where then I was like, okay, he's gonna have cerebral palsy. So it's like me the pumping thing. But I
Yeah.
then was on Instagram and I started following like these moms that have kids with CP. I was following like accounts and because I'm trying to prepare myself for my future and they're talking about like, oh, we did these therapies and whereas he's like still being tube fed. We're nowhere near that. But I'm like, if I can just gather this information, to me, that's like in my control.
Yeah.
But it became, I ended up talking to my therapist about it where I kind of just muted or unfollowed some of those accounts because it became almost overwhelming because then every time I'm almost opening my Instagram, I'm seeing these kids with these severe disabilities, and I'm wanting that, like, how are they doing things? And but I'm not there yet. So I just tried to, if I could go back and tell myself or give advice to moms maybe in a similar situation, it's just, if it's not happening right now, it's not happening. It's kind of how I ended up starting to look at
Yeah.
it. And if it does come up and it does happen, then there are people in place to help you and you can kind of start walking that journey. But I almost got too ahead of myself in trying to prepare for his future, but I didn't know what it looked like. And
I feel like the word control really resonates with me. Like in those moments, your control was completely ripped out from underneath of you, and that sense of control was taken away. And so, anything that you can do to try and gain that or prepare yourself for what may come up, again, I think it's just a response from everything that you've been through.
yeah, it is. And it's, yeah, just trying. It is hard, but trying to stay present as much as you can because I feared, like where I am today, I feared this future where I am now. And it looks so different
Mhm.
from what it is. So that piece that I was trying to control was just adding anxiety unnecessarily. So, yeah, like resist, persist, and if it's not happening right now, it's not happening. And I still
I
need to,
love that.
not perfect. I still need to remind myself of that because even today, me and Jackson were like, I wonder when he's going to start talking. And you just hear other moms talk, or you see kids younger than him, and they're saying so much. Or he has a cousin close in age, and she's already or has so many words, and you do get in your head about it of just, oh, when is this going to happen? What is that? And then to me, I'm hoping, the future me is going to look back and think there was no need to stress. It's just Miles on his own timeline.
He's on his own
Let
journey.
him
Yes.
learn as he learns and just love
My
him.
heart believes you will find yourself
Yeah.
looking back every year, just wow,
And the
look what
thing is,
he's doing
too,
now.
if he say he's not, it's he's our miracle Miles, and it's not perfect, and that's also okay. Like he's gonna be who he is, and he's just gonna teach us. Maybe it's a learning lesson for me to be
Hmm.
present and be calm, and it's gonna be a lesson that's with me forever.
You were made his mama for a reason.
I guess so.
Aw.
No, it is. I'm very grateful to be his mom, and it's a beautiful, hard journey, but we're in it, and that's all you can do.
You're doing amazing.
You too.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Day by day over here.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, that's my motto.
I know. I mean, it's every mom's motto, and then when you go through what we
Yeah.
went through, and you try to process grief and trauma and learn all these things,
Yeah.
it's
It's a
really minute
different
by
ball
minute,
game.
the day by day.
Yeah, at some point it was seconds by seconds, if I'm being totally honest. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with
Thanks
me.
for asking me.
I
I'm so proud of
Yes.
you for doing this. It's such a huge accomplishment, and
Thank you.
it is, like we said, you just wanna find, I think for both of us, we're similar in that way where it's we went through something that you don't wish upon anybody, but it gives, like, you doing this podcast gives kids' life such a beautiful meaning, and I'm so happy that you get to, like, share that.
Now you're gonna make me cry.
No, but it's true, you should be so proud of yourself, and
Aw.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Please take a moment and on whatever app you're listening to us on, press that follow button to stay up to date with all future episodes. If you or someone you know are interested in being a guest on the Beyond the Birth Story podcast or a sponsor, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at Beyond the Birth Story podcast and send a message or fill out that contact form. I would love to connect with you. As always, remember to be gentle, kind, and hold space for yourself when you need it.